Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now Eddie Hearn is still talking about Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. He believes that it's not as intriguing as it once was, but it is still a big fight. It is not one that is necessarily on the immediate radar, but it is one that they are monitoring. So this is a genuine possibility for 2021, and the reason why, we don't really need to ask. We know why, because they can't go anywhere else. Amir Khan can't get a bigger fight than Kell Brook. Same for Kell Brook. At the moment, can they fight Terence Crawford? They both have. They both lost. Can they fight Errol Spence? Kell Brook has. He lost. Amir Khan, he would lose against Errol Spence. I don't see him beating him. There are Manny Pacquiao fights out there. There are Ugas fights out there. But Manny Pacquiao is not fighting either of these two. Definitely not. It's going to be Conor McGregor, Errol Spence, the likes of Terence Crawford also for him. So you can rule him out. Ugas is not a big name, so neither of them are going to go for him. So the only fight they can take is against one another unless Kell Brook wants to go back up to 154, which he can do, or go to 160 and apparently fight Chris Eubank Jr., which is a fight I guess that would be interesting for some, but doesn't really make much sense. So in light of that, the only fight that they both can take is against one another. Obviously they can go their separate routes, but for what? Who are they going to fight and for what reason? There needs to be a reason for them to continue fighting at this stage of their careers. That needs to be a reason like Amir Khan for Kell Brook, or Kell Brook for Amir Khan, to finally put this dispute to bed about a fight that could have been made 5 or 6 years ago, about a fight that could have been made 2 or 3 years ago when Amir Khan actually signed with Matchroom in a 3-fight deal, yet Kell Brook was on Matchroom and he still didn't fight Kell Brook. Yes, he fought Philo Greco, which was fair enough, a comeback fight after being out of the ring for like 2.5 years, so he can have that one, that's fair enough. Then Samuel Vargas, but then he went and fought Terence Crawford when the third fight was supposed to be Kell Brook. And I don't blame him for that. It's a world title fight against the best welterweight in the world. You could dispute that, you could say that Errol Spence is number one. He is number one. Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world when you consider how many belts he's got and his resume. So Errol Spence is number one, but that doesn't mean he's better than Terence Crawford. We need to see that one in the ring as well. Now, I guess one question we could have is how much is left? How much does Amir Khan still have in the tank? And the same question for Kell Brook. Well, Kell Brook hasn't looked good at 147 for a couple of years now. He's a 154. He needs to really drain himself to get down to that weight. In there with Terence Crawford, good jab, he was moving well, he was setting things up, but when it got to the point where they had to make adjustments, Terence Crawford was able to do that. Kell Brook wasn't, so Terence Crawford took it to a place where Kell Brook could not follow, and that is how the fight played out. That is how Terence Crawford was able to beat him. Once he turned it on, there was no way back for Kell Brook. He didn't know what to do with Terence Crawford, and that is no shame. Terence Crawford is top 3 pound for pound in the world, so there is no shame in losing to him. Now, Amir Khan, he seems to kind of rush over his front foot when he's coming forwards. He's always done stuff like that anyway. He's always rushed in. His head seems to be working so quickly that he seems to rush. He seems to rush forwards, trying to land punches. He's so eager to land that he needs to slow his mind down. Currently, at this stage in his career, he can't do what he was able to 10 years ago. No fighter can. So he needs to realise that and to slow his mind down. That doesn't mean throw slower punches. That means slow his mind down, jab, jab, right hand, move to the left, move to the right, use your angles, use your feet, make sure that your feet are always underneath you instead of rushing forwards and allowing your chin to go over your front foot. Those are things that Amir Khan was doing in there with Terence Crawford, and he paid the price, so he cannot do that, especially in there with Kell Brook as well, because Kell Brook will make him pay. Brook is a heavy-handed fighter, and when Amir Khan's walking onto those shots as well, they will be even more devastating. Now I guess you could ask the question, why do you need to slow your mind down? Well, if you look at the likes of Canelo, everything seems calculated, everything is thought of. He doesn't seem like he rushes anything. You see him in there with the likes of Callum Smith, who's a world level operator, but Canelo seems like he doesn't even come out of first gear, and the reason behind that is because everything is thought out in his head. It's a thinking man's game after all. I mean, Floyd Mayweather once said, it's chess, not checkers. And at times Amir Khan is guilty of being too eager to land. That is why he rushes forwards, that is why he seems to come over his front foot. At this point in his career, he needs to be more considered and think about the punches he's throwing, set things up off of the jab. He does have a good jab, but when he does that, when he rushes forwards, he doesn't use it. If he sets things up behind that jab, then a lot more will flow more fluidly. But in there with Kell Brook, if he starts rushing forwards like he's done previously, he will get stopped. Now, Kell Brook, on the other hand, how much has he got left? How can he beat Amir Khan? Does he just land a few powerful blows and Amir Khan cannot stand up to the power? Because a lot of people seem to think that Kell Brook would land a few heavy blows and Amir Khan would be ready to go. If that did happen, then of course Amir Khan can be stopped. But if Amir Khan is clever, then that might not happen. I don't believe that they will approach this fight like a grudge match. They will be careful, they will be considered. Neither of them will want to lose this fight, so it will be cagey to begin with, and in fact, it might not catch fire until the mid rounds. I think that if Amir Khan can stick in there for say 5 or 6 rounds, then he has a better chance. But then again, he's not always had the best gas tank, so that could go against him also. If you factor in that the fighters are not the same fighters that they once were, so they are fighting one another when they are past their best. That is of course if the fight does happen. And of course Amir Khan has this stigma around him that he's got a glass jaw, he's chinny. Yes, of course, he's always had that during his career. But then again, Kell Brook has something similar, the injuries he sustained in the Gennady Golovkin fight and the Errol Spence fight. That will be in his head throughout the rest of his career. Same as Amir Khan, being hit on the chin once or twice. Is he going to be ready to go? So that will be in the minds of both fighters going into this fight. And if the fight were to be made at 147, which it would be, Amir Khan would not take it if it's not at 147. So if it is at that weight, that does give Amir Khan more of a chance. If it is any higher than that, I don't believe we can pick any other winner than at Kell Brook. He would be too big, too strong, and he would have too much punch resistance for Amir Khan. He would be able to just walk through all of what Amir Khan can throw at him, especially because Amir Khan is not the same fighter he once was. He's still got the speed, he's still got the power, but his feet do not move as fast as they used to. So if you factor that in, at a higher weight, there is only one winner in my opinion, and that is Kell Brook. So for Amir Khan to have any chance in this fight, it would need to be at 147. He could not go to a higher weight class and face Kell Brook in that one at 154 or even at 152. It would just be too much, I believe, for Amir Khan, because Kell Brook is too big and too strong and punches too hard at that weight. Look what Kell Brook was able to do to Rabchenko at 154. So the fight would be made at 147. Amir Khan would not take it otherwise, and the fight cannot be on pay-per-view. There is no way that we're going to watch this if it's on pay-per-view. I'll watch it, but I'm not paying a pay-per-view to watch Amir Khan versus Kell Brook because they had the chance to make it back along and they did not. Now that it is their only option, they cannot stick a pay-per-view on this and try and sell it. Yes, £5-10 could be plausible, but £15-20 pay-per-view for something like this, no one's going to pay for it because it's two fighters who should have fought years ago and they are only fighting now because they need one another. So given that, this is not really a pay-per-view fight anymore, but still a fight that is intriguing, still a fight that would capture the public's imagination. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.